It happened only a few days ago, and even now my hands still shake when I think about it. I wasn't planning to post this, but the memory keeps replaying in my head like a broken record, each time darker than before. What began as an ordinary afternoon, meeting a couple of friends for coffee, turned into the kind of nightmare you don't easily forget. It was Friday afternoon when Sarah called me. Her voice was casual, lighthearted. She wanted me to meet her and Lisa at Dunkin' Donuts, just to catch up. I remember glancing out the window at the clear blue sky, thinking it was too perfect a day to stay inside. The walk would do me good. The air was crisp, sunlight warm on my face, and I actually felt safe. Little did I know how fast that feeling would evaporate. When I entered Dunkin', the smell of coffee and fresh pastries hit me instantly. People were scattered around, families, teenagers, a few solitary laptop workers. It was busy, but not overly loud. I spotted Sarah and Lisa waving me over, and I joined them, relieved to see familiar faces. For a while, everything was normal. But then I noticed her. In the far corner, half hidden in the shadows, my younger sister Elena was sitting with her friend Jess. At first, I felt a flicker of surprise. What were the odds of us running into each other here? I got up, smiling, and made my way over. But the moment I greeted them, their faces shifted. They weren't smiling. They were pale, tense, almost frozen. Elena leaned in, her voice so quiet I barely heard it. "Don't look now, but the guy in the blue shirt, I think he's been following us." I tilted my head slightly, pretending to stretch my neck, and that's when I saw him. A man in his mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, sitting at a table not far from theirs. He wasn't eating, wasn't drinking, just sitting, eyes flicking toward Elena and Jess whenever he thought no one was watching. Elena continued, whispering fast. "He's walked past us at least 5 times in the last 20 minutes, always slowing down, like staring." At first, I wanted to brush it off. Maybe he was just some weird guy. But then, as if on cue, the man stood, made his way toward the bathroom, and when he passed Elena's table, his pace slowed to a crawl, almost unnaturally slow, as though dragging the moment out, savoring it. His head tilted just enough that I saw his eyes slide toward my sister. It wasn't paranoia. It was deliberate. I nodded to Elena and Jess, letting them know I'd seen it too. Their relief was brief but fragile. I returned to Sarah and Lisa, explained quietly what was happening. They laughed nervously, brushing it off. "He's probably harmless." But then, as if the air in the room had shifted, another man walked in and joined the first. This one younger, early 30s, dressed in dark clothes. He sat across from the blue shirt man, and the two exchanged a look. Then they both turned their gaze toward Elena and Jess. That's when my stomach dropped. 2 men, watching, whispering, pointing. We decided to leave. I told Elena and Jess to act natural, not to run. Sarah and Lisa stayed behind, still unconvinced anything serious was going on. Elena offered to drive me home, and I agreed. The moment we stepped outside, the sunlight no longer felt warm. It felt thin, distant, like the day itself had soured. The drive was short, barely 2 minutes, but I'll never forget the way Elena's hands shook slightly on the wheel. When we pulled up to my place, I remembered I had something to return to my parents. Since Elena was heading there anyway, I dashed inside to grab it. That's when her phone rang. "Don't look out the window." Elena's voice cracked through the speaker. "But he followed us. He's outside." My chest tightened. I turned slowly, pulling the curtain back just a fraction. My blood froze. A car was parked in my neighbor's driveway, a car that didn't belong to them. And behind the wheel was the man from Duncan. I yanked open the door and waved Elena and Jess inside. I slammed it shut, locked it, double-checked it. My heart was hammering so loudly I could barely think. Jess, call 911 now. Elena, take pictures, license plate, everything. For a brief moment, I felt like we had control again. Jess was on the phone with the dispatcher, relaying details, her voice trembling but steady enough to get the story across. Elena snapped photos, her hands shaking. Then came the knock. It wasn't just a knock. It was a thunderous pounding, rattling the frame of the door. Then a voice, deep and commanding. "Police, open up." Jess gasped, whispering, "They're here already." She told the dispatcher, "The police are at the door now," and hung up. Relief swept the room like a wave, until instinct made me pause. My hand hovered over the lock, but something inside me screamed, "Look first." I pressed my eye against the peephole, and what I saw made my blood turn to ice. It wasn't a police officer. It was him. His face was twisted, stretched into a grotesque imitation of authority. His knuckles slammed against the door as he barked, "We had a call, sir. Let us in." I froze, my throat dry. Somehow, words forced themselves out of my mouth. We didn't call the police. Behind me, Elena and Jess looked at me in confusion. They didn't understand. Not yet. The pounding grew louder. His voice shifted, no longer commanding, but desperate. First ordering, then pleading. "Sir, please, let me in. Let me in now." I backed away from the door, heart racing. Then, through the tension, the faint sound of sirens. Real sirens. Red and blue lights flashed through the curtains, and moments later, the real police arrived. The man didn't resist. He was taken into custody quietly, almost too quietly, as though this wasn't his first time. When they searched him, the truth was worse than I had imagined. A kitchen knife was hidden on his body. More weapons were found in his car. If I had opened that door without checking, if I had trusted that voice, I don't think any of us would have made it out. That night, my parents and Jess's parents came over. We sat in silence, replaying every sound, every glance, every pounding fist on the door. My sister tried to act calm, but her eyes betrayed her. Wide, unblinking, haunted. Even now, days later, when I close my eyes at night, I hear it again. That knock, that voice pretending to be something it wasn't. And I can't shake the thought, what if he hadn't been caught? What if there are others like him, waiting, watching, patient enough to follow you home? Some nightmares don't wait for you to fall asleep. They come in broad daylight. They knock at your door. And sometimes they almost get in. This happened when I was a bartender about 6 years ago. For the record, I'm female, and I was 26 at the time. Even now, I think about this often, sometimes when I'm in a grocery store, sometimes when I'm just walking to my car at night. It's changed me. I no longer go shopping alone after midnight, ever. And once you hear this, you'll understand why. It was a busy Friday night at the bar. The place was loud with laughter, glasses clinking, the faint smell of alcohol mixed with sweat and perfume. The dinner rush had finally died down when the manager noticed we were running low on essentials, lemons, limes, bitters. He asked me to run to the 24-hour grocery store just down the road. Normally, it was no big deal. I'd done it plenty of times before. I grabbed what I needed quickly. The store was fairly empty, fluorescent lights buzzing above, the faint echo of music on the intercom. Everything felt routine, until I turned down the liquor aisle. That's when I saw them. 2 men. Country-looking, rough around the edges, about my age. They weren't shopping, they were just standing there, staring at me, whispering to each other. I could feel their eyes crawling over me, sticking to my skin like oil. My instincts screamed at me to leave. So I grabbed the bottle I needed and power-walked away, forcing myself not to run. I made it to self-checkout, relief fluttering in my chest, until I realized they had followed me. They weren't browsing anymore, they were right there. One was tall, broad-shouldered, with a hard face, and eyes so bloodshot I couldn't tell if it was drugs, alcohol, or both. The other was shorter, heavier, and dirtier looking, his gaze meaner, hungrier. They didn't just invade my space, they hovered so close I could smell them. Sweat, beer, something rotten underneath. I tried to stay calm, forced a polite half-smile, hoping they'd take the hint and back off. Instead, it was an invitation. "Looks like you're ready to party, huh?" the taller one said, grinning with broken teeth. "Something like that," I muttered. "Not for me, though." That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. They stepped closer. "Must be for your boyfriend, then." Another tight smile. I turned slightly, shielding my purse from their view. My heart hammered as I reached inside, fingers brushing against the small pocket knife I always carried. I slipped it discreetly into my sleeve, keeping my face neutral, pretending I was just fumbling for my wallet. The tall one leaned in, his voice dropping lower, darker. "Oh, I see how it is. You only go for doctors, rich guys, men who think they're better than us. You think you're too good for us. We can show you different. We can teach you a lesson." The way he said it, like he was savoring the words, made my skin crawl. I didn't answer. I focused on scanning my items, praying they'd lose interest. But then, the machine malfunctioned. A loud, sharp beep pierced the air, shattering the tense silence. For once in my life, I was grateful for broken technology. The self-checkout attendant immediately came over. She was tall, strong-looking, with a no-nonsense expression. She caught the way the men instantly changed their demeanor, faces shifting from predatory to fake-friendly. "She must have been stealing," one of them joked. "Yeah, we know her. She's good people," the other added, voice dripping with false charm. The attendant didn't buy it, not for a second. She shot them a glare so sharp it could cut glass. Then she looked at me, her eyes locking onto mine, wide, knowing. She'd seen the fear. "This machine isn't working correctly," she said firmly, her hand lightly pressing against my back. "Why don't you come with me, and I'll ring you up at a regular register?" I almost broke down in relief. We walked together to a register near the security office. The men lingered by self-checkout, still watching, still waiting. Minutes passed. They finally left the store, but the worker insisted we wait. She had a feeling, and she was right. When she and the security guard escorted out, the parking lot was eerily empty, lit by harsh white lamps buzzing above. My car sat halfway down the row, and at the very back of the lot, a truck idled, engine rumbling, headlights glaring straight at us. They'd moved it, parked it facing the doors, watching. It was like two predators waiting for their prey to step into the open. I froze, but the worker squeezed my shoulder. The three of us stared back at the truck, making it clear I wasn't alone. Only then did the driver rev the engine and peel out, tires screeching against asphalt, a cloud of smoke in their wake. They were angry, frustrated, denied, but they were gone. My knees nearly gave out from the adrenaline rush. I turned to the worker and the guard, thanking them over and over. I truly believed they had just saved my life, or, at the very least, spared me from something I'd never forget. Later, I wrote a long letter to corporate and the store manager, praising that woman. She didn't know me, didn't owe me anything, but she chose to protect me, and that choice may have saved me from disappearing into the night. Just another unsolved case. It's been years, but I never forgot that truck, the way it sat there, lights on, waiting for me. I never forgot their voices, or the way their smiles twisted when they said they wanted to teach me a lesson. And that's why, to this day, I will never, ever go shopping alone after midnight. Because monsters don't just hide under your bed. Sometimes they wait for you in a parking lot.
It was deep into the night, a darkness so thick it felt alive, pressing down on the world like a weight. Every shadow seemed to shift just beyond the corner of my eyes, as though the trees themselves were watching. I was driving on a long, isolated stretch of road, 5 hours away from work, the asphalt stretching endlessly before me. Only the low hum of my engine accompanied me, a faint heartbeat in the void. The scent of damp pine and cold earth seeped through my open vent, mingling with the faint metallic tang of exhaustion that clung to me. After about 3 hours, fatigue began to crawl into my bones. My eyelids were heavy, drooping against my will. The monotony of the road, the endless darkness, the whispering wind through the pines, all of it felt like it was conspiring to pull me under. I forced myself to pull into a dimly lit gas station, the harsh yellow light cutting into the night. The smell of gasoline stung my nose, mingling with the scent of old rubber and asphalt. I grabbed a bitter coffee and some snacks, hoping they could stave off the creeping heaviness. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be enough. The road called me back, and I pressed onward. Within minutes, my eyelids grew heavy again. The forest pressed in from all sides, the trees towering like silent, watchful sentinels. The road seemed abandoned, an empty ribbon cutting through a living nightmare. No other vehicles, no streetlights, just the faint glow of distant signs and the occasional startling thud of bugs against my windshield. I turned up the music, blasted the air conditioning, anything to jolt myself awake. But it was useless. Sleep was creeping in, relentless and cunning. My head nodded forward, almost brushing the steering wheel. Panic slammed into me. I had to stop. I had to find safety. I scanned the roadside desperately for a safe spot, any pocket of land where I could pull over. Mile after mile passed, the pines looming like silent sentinels, until I spotted a small, warm pull-off, a hollow in the road that might once have been used by travelers long forgotten. I didn't care if it was official. I pulled in, killed the engine, and cracked the window just enough to listen. Silence. Total silence. The wind whispered through the branches, the only movement in the vast darkness. I convinced myself it was safe. Nobody would come. If someone did, it would be a cop. Still, I locked the doors, reclined the seat fully, removed my shoes, and closed my eyes, allowing exhaustion to finally claim me. I don't know how long I slept, but it ended abruptly. A blinding light pierced my eyelids, sharp and unnatural, like a predator's gaze cutting into me. My first instinct was confusion. A flashlight, perhaps, someone checking on me. But as my vision adjusted, I realized the horror. It was high beams blazing from a car parked directly behind me. Then I saw him. A man moving slowly, deliberately toward my vehicle. My heart surged. My half-asleep mind clung to hope. Maybe a police officer, maybe just someone lost. But as he reached the driver's side back door and yanked the handle, hope shattered. He wasn't knocking, he wasn't asking, he was breaking in. Trapped, reclined in the seat, my feet too far from the pedals, I felt my vulnerability tighten like a vice around my chest. Panic surged. My hand slammed down on the horn, a deafening blast that shattered the still night. He recoiled, giving me the fraction of a second I needed. I scrambled upright, fumbling for the keys, twisting my body in ways that made every muscle scream. The engine roared to life, tires screaming against asphalt. Dust, gravel, and smoke erupted behind me as I sped onto the road. Adrenaline coursed through me, sharp and hot. I dared a glance into the rearview mirror and froze. He wasn't alone. Two more figures emerged from the shadows, stepping into his headlights. One carried something long and heavy, a weapon I couldn't identify, but knew was dangerous. A wrench, a crowbar, a bat. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to escape. They had been lying in wait. They had planned this. I was their target, and I had been lucky. For the next 30 minutes, I drove like a man possessed. No speed limit mattered. My hands gripped the wheel until my knuckles whitened, every sense honed to terror. Finally, I reached a distant gas station, my body shaking uncontrollably as I readjusted my seat and slid my shoes back on. The clock in my car revealed a horrifying truth. I had only slept 10 minutes. 10 minutes was all it took for them to find me, surround me, and try to break in. Sleep was no longer an option. I drove to work wide awake, not stopping until I reached the fenced, alarmed facility. My boss merely nodded when I told him, as though he had heard the story countless times before. In this country, we call these criminals road pirates. They target drivers in isolated areas, forcing them from their cars to steal everything. Their phones, wallets, valuables, even the vehicles themselves. That stretch of road, a prime hunting ground. Could it have been a coincidence? Maybe. But then why the stealth? Why the weapon in hand? I don't believe in coincidences. That night, I had been lucky. Next time, luck may not be enough. The shadows on the road are patient. The darkness is alive. And the road pirates are always waiting. Be vigilant. Stay alert. Because you never know who or what might be watching.